Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. It is the deep dive. I'm Chris Pajak. That man there is Josh Williams, and we are unfortunately talking about Manchester City whooping Liverpool's ass at the weekend. It wasn't a good one, was it, Josh?
No. It's this is the down. I said earlier on the show. This is the downsides of doing football content, because you just got hammered 3-0 and you're forced to talk about it. But it can be quite therapeutic, can't it?
Yeah.
And whether it will be today, I'm not sure, because
I don't know. I don't think so.
No. We're not going to come to any solutions, are we? That's the problem.
I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, I got dogs abuse on the podcast yesterday. I'm sure I didn't check the comments. But I knew I had a viewpoint that was going to be slightly different to most people.
I think, to be fair, I think Chloe mentioned it to me.
Did she? Yeah.
She asked me my view to see where I stood on the whole thing, but didn't.
Well, go ahead. Without me telling you what my thoughts were, what were yours?
I thought, I think it's an interesting game to think about, actually. I think Liverpool were more unlucky than bad, which is a mad thing to say, but I think Liverpool were both, crucially, but mostly unlucky. If you think of the penalty that we concede, it's a slight touch on Doku's leg, and he plants that leg just fine and then goes down, which I think is annoying. Van Dijk scores a perfectly legitimate goal. It gets ruled out because of referees. Daft. They scored 2 goals from outside the box. One was deflected, and the goal that Haaland scores, the opener, he doesn't even know where he is. It just kind of bounces off him and just kind of goes in. So I think the goals that we conceded and some of the decisions around the thing and all that was largely unlucky, and we limited Haaland to his lowest non-penalty XG in any game this season. City created less than 1 expected goal in total. If you actually
minus the penalty.
Minus the penalty, yeah. If you actually think of the shots City had, they didn't really have any tap-ins or any way you're like, we should score there and like that. So, but then generally as well, I do think Liverpool played with a bit of fear, played within themselves, and Pep edged the tactics, I felt, with and without the ball, which we'll get into here. So whatever that is, worked that one out. Bad and unlucky, I would say, but mostly the latter in a weird sort of way.
I won't labour the point, because I made a few statements yesterday. I just thought we were bang average with and without the ball yesterday, and I thought City were really, really good. Sunday, sorry, and City were really, really good. But we'll get into the tactic side of things anyway. So, when you first saw Liverpool's lineup, Josh, were you like me and thought we're going to have the midfield battle here?
Yeah. Especially with Wirtz playing. So I thought, obviously, Wirtz is going to do bits of that. And you had no Rodri. You had Nico Gonzalez and Bernardo Silva. I think Bernardo Silva's in his 30s now. Ryan Cherki doesn't really track back. And
Phil Foden in there as well. And
and Doku is predominantly in England, at least a wide player. And Liverpool had Szoboszlai back in the 10. McAllister looked a bit better against Real Madrid. And as I said, Wirtz coming inside and overloading in the middle of the park. So I felt Liverpool would have the midfield. But absolutely didn't play out that way.
It did not play out like that. Okay, that sets up the show nicely, because I'd not asked Josh that off camera or anything like that. But yeah, we were very much on the watch on when the team came out. Liverpool going to own this midfield battle, yada yada yada. Didn't work out like that.
Didn't.
I just wanted to highlight some of the build-up play, I think, from Manchester City to begin with, if that's okay, Josh. So we'll bring up the first graphic, please, Aaron, and we've got, you can see there's a nice spread of Manchester City players. Nico Gonzalez is right in the centre of the picture, without the ball, in between Florian Wirtz and Hugo Ekitike. And he's sort of dropping in nicely between those centre-halves and giving them a lot of players deep to sort of progress the ball with. And it's something that me and you have spoken about quite a lot, Josh, is about, like, I've definitely said it to you, whether you've agreed or not, I'm not 100% sure, but like, I always feel that like a build-up of a 3 and a 2 is easier than a 2 and a 3, and I think Liverpool have tended to go with just Konate and Van Dijk back at times for the most part this season. But Manchester City, regardless, have given themselves a lot of options and a lot of players in that picture there.
Yeah, well, if we go back to it off camera, then I've just counted. So City have got 8 players in the picture there for the build-up. Liverpool have got 6. And that's been a bit of a consistent theme throughout Slot's tenure, to be fair. The idea is you sacrifice being outnumbered with your press because your defensive line, which is out of picture, will remain intact. So you'll outnumber City where it matters. If you want where Haaland is, you'll have an extra man back there. This is why you could argue Szoboszlai is so important to play as the number 10, because if you're going to be outnumbered in your high press, Szoboszlai covers the ground of 2 players. So he allows you to cheat a little bit in that sense. So I think Liverpool have looked a bit better with Szoboszlai in the 10. But there's cheating, and then there's trying to cheat at the Etihad against Man City, who are building with 8.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
You know, it was always going to be a struggle.
So we move on, and just before we do, it's okay. You can see the man who's picked up the ball there, I think, is Bernardo Silva. It's Phil Foden, actually, in the middle of your shot. He's in the midfield. He's probably got 15 yards between him and any Liverpool player at this point. It's not a situation you particularly want to be in, given how dangerous Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva are when they are on the ball. Anyway, he decides to switch the ball out to Matheus Cunha on this...
Matheus Cunha?
Sorry, Nunes. Bloody hell. On this side of the ball here. So he switches it out. And just want to draw your attention to the player closest to him on the left-hand side as we're looking at it. That's Bernardo Silva, who's taken up a very deep position again. Now, you know, what I wanted to sort of look at on the board at this point is actually these 3 midfielders, because, you know, we've seen a little bit of build-up play here, and what's happening, there was a lot of rotation between these players, wasn't there, Josh, on the board? You know, yes, Gonzalez drops deep at times, but it wasn't just him. It was Phil Foden getting into these areas, Bernardo Silva, and then crucially, they actually had the legs to get up the pitch as well, didn't they?
Yeah, well, this is something that City have been playing with lately. So, although it's effective, it is worth saying from a Liverpool perspective, Arne Slot should not have really been surprised by this. And after the game, when he speaks about, like, we were overloaded in the midfield, they had Nico O'Reilly and, you know, I think he said something like they had like a 2-player edge at times and things like that. You shouldn't really have been too surprised by that, because Phil Foden lately has been dropping deeper. He's been aiding build-up play. Doku has been playing more inside. Shaky's been on the pitch getting lots of returns lately, but it is very narrow. I thought it was interesting that when you were touching on one of the graphics, then you thought it was Bernardo Silva, and then you went, "Oh no, it's Foden." But I think that's part of the problem. There's so many of them little tricky playmaking types that keep dropping deeper for City, almost like turns a little bit PSG-esque, actually. You know, with the rotations where
the
sometimes
positional rotations.
Yeah. Sometimes it's Vitinha, sometimes it's João Neves or whoever. So they are difficult to pick up like that. Like they've got the players that can progress the ball, the players that can handle the ball in tight spaces. But as I said, what they actually came with was actually not a Pep Guardiola galaxy brain thing. It was something that he's been doing fairly consistent lately, and Liverpool seemed a bit shocked by it, which is definitely a worry.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll bring up the next graphic then, and you can see the ball's been laid off to Bernardo Silva from Matheus Nunes. Oh, goodness me, I'm getting my names all mixed up again here. I'm just going to say the right back from now on. And you can see as he's got the football here, Liverpool are in a very strong shape. We're in a very good, it looks like a 4-2-4 pressing position, mid-block probably at the moment. If there's an opportunity to get the ball, we may try and step out. We've got Florian Wirtz and we've got Dominic Szoboszlai.
Can I just point out, see that's a mid-block, right? That's your absolute customary mid-block. I think it's interesting that Liverpool did that.
After Real Madrid?
Yeah.
When he said don't do that.
Exactly. Against Real Madrid, he was very eager not to do that. It was either a high press or a low block, purely because of the pace of Mbappe and Vinicius. Now, City had Haaland and Doku, so it's not identical, but it's pretty similar. And to be fair, Haaland didn't really get Liverpool going in behind very often. But it's interesting that Liverpool went for that, having deemed that to be suicide against Real Madrid. I thought that was interesting. Like.
No, yeah, absolutely. And what I find interesting as well to pick up on what you've, or to move on from what you've said, is that because of Wirtz in and out of possession, Ekitike had a lot of thinking to do about where he was going to be, because sometimes he was centre forward and he was in that 4-2-4, sometimes he was on the left hand side, depending where Wirtz was. And I think that's good that they had the understanding and the ability to just say, do you know what, when Wirtz is there, Ekitike, you're going to have to move out to the left-hand side. Florian's going to go there. Rather than Wirtz trying to get back to that left-hand side position all the time. Something you see with defenders at times, isn't it? We saw Robbo and Van Dijk switch positions before the first goal, and unfortunately not get back in time. So I thought that was interesting that we were doing that. And if you can bring that graphic up again, please, Aaron, and then... as the ball's laid off by Bernardo Silva now, watch where he runs to. He's passed it off. Wirtz has stepped out of the line to try and get this high press going. Bernardo Silva's ran between Ekitike and Florian Wirtz, and he's picking up the ball in between them. And there's two out the game. And thankfully, as we move on, you'll see that Dominic Szoboszlai now is at least onto it and is picking up Bernardo Silva and making it difficult for him. But it was just a bit easy, that little 1-2 round the presses, wasn't it? And then, Bernardo Silva then moves it on again, and they're back into the defenders, but they move the ball quickly again into the midfield. And this time around, if you can move it on one more time. Oh, sorry, no, you were on the right one. My bad, mate. You can see just centrally how many players Manchester City are building up with, and I think that brings me on to a point from your Substack this week, Josh, is the next graphic, which is this. This is later in the game, only a minute or so, I think. But
this is kind of how City established their foothold in possession. Really, it was a lot of players in the centre. Doku, we are used to being a touchline player. He comes inside. He comes inside. These players are really difficult to get close to. They're so quick, so good with the feet, really creative and that sort of thing. Behind our double pivots as well, which is a bit of a problem and a bit of an ongoing theme sometimes when Liverpool tend to struggle. But to kind of cope with that, Liverpool overcompensated some here and there. Like Wirtz tucks inside. There was times when Robertson was tucking inside. Bradley, I'm not sure I can really make it out there, but I think Bradley's
following Doku.
But he's following him in a way, isn't he, where it suggests, should I be doing this?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like he's kind of...
And that's because of O'Reilly's positioning, surely, Josh?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I'm not sure if this one was it, but there was a moment where Doku does that exact movement. He ends up in between Bradley and Salah. He receives the ball and just lays it to O'Reilly, who you can see there is the free man. So Liverpool found it difficult to cope with City's overload in the middle while taking care of the fullbacks in O'Reilly and Matthias Cunha.
And that overload it's not good odds for us, is it, in the centre of the park with the way that they play?
No. But again, it shouldn't have been too much of a surprise, though. It is what they've been doing. I think it's interesting that Liverpool didn't really come up with anything new to deal with it. I wonder if, like, on the back of picking up 2 wins, with things going back to last season, Slot just kind of didn't want to tamper with it and just hoped almost that Liverpool would find a way with that team because they've won 2 on the bounce now. But I think having watched it back, maybe now Slot would look at it and think I needed to do something different there because we got beat tactically and it spiraled from there.
And I think it is also fair to say that, I think tactically last season Slot got the best of Pep Guardiola. Obviously he came up with the Szoboszlai and Jones thing. We tried a little bit of that later on in the game and didn't quite really have the same impact in this game as it did last season, but game state plays into it. They were able to drop in at times and soak up pressure. I think they had 57% of the ball in the first half, didn't they, Manchester City? And it was almost the exact opposite of that in the second half because they don't have to play in the same way as 3-4 years ago where they dominate the ball the whole time. They actually are comfortable now sitting in and dropping in at times and just playing the percentages maybe.
Yeah. The thing is, though, with that, they're not as capable of soaking pressure as like a Van Dijk or a Kanate, just kind of heading everything away. So I did think Liverpool would eventually break their deadlock, but just didn't. And I think that the passive approach thing that people have touched on, like Liverpool's reluctance to press and stuff like that, you've got to remember last season we kind of did the same thing. We absolutely ran all over them at Anfield, but at the Etihad, especially once we went a goal up, you know, we were sitting pretty deep actually at one point. Again, it's a game state thing that comes into it. But Liverpool kind of showing City respect and almost being reluctant to just go hell for leather is not really a new thing. We saw it last season and we won the game. So, but I can see why if you lose the game, it suddenly looks really bad. It looks like you've just rolled over and just accepted defeat, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, it does. Now, I'm going to show you one more passage of play that I've sort of pulled out from the game. And I remember we were watching this on the watch along, and I was a bit dumbfounded, to be honest. I thought it was absolutely exceptional football. And before we get into it, I will just say I hate this football player more than anything. I don't actually hate many football players, but Bernardo Silva I genuinely do, and there's a few reasons for it. There's him on the coach is number one from back in the day. Number two, it's the performances he puts in against us. And number three, I'm just worn down by him now. It's been too long.
How many times has he faced us?
I don't know.
It feels like every single time, even if he's like missed the last 10 games, Guardiola will play him against Liverpool every single time.
I'm convinced he's only still at Man City because he hates us.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of it, Josh. No one can tell me otherwise. But all that being said, he is an absolutely fabulous footballer who has completely like changed his game over the last few years as well, because of, you know, being that tricky winger to like a tenacious number 8 in his latter years. It's ridiculous and it's arse and it's not fair, to be quite honest with you. So I'm going to bring up the first graphic of it anyway. And again, we mentioned positional rotations before, didn't we, Josh? This is him picking up the ball after a free kick that McAllister gave away in the centre-back position. Now, I didn't go to the game, so apologies. I can't tell you how it got to this because the television coverage in the UK had McAllister on the screen at the time. But Man City took a free kick and went backwards, essentially, is what I can work out. So he picks up the ball deep. Hugo Ekitike's in a great position looking to press. I think Liverpool have pretty much got the situation sorted, and actually they probably look at this, Josh, is it fair to say, like, this is a good opportunity for us to win the ball back high up the pitch here? Yeah,
potentially. But I think one interesting thing I'll throw up in there is we haven't actually touched on Liverpool's build-up yet, but the way City were able to be quite creative, fluid, you know, flexible with it by dropping in someone like a Bernardo Silva who you just kind of wouldn't expect there, to be honest. Foden did it at times, we've already said. So when we touch on Liverpool's build-up, I'll elaborate a little bit more, but it felt like City were quite unpredictable with how they built the game, and although that was a relatively favourable spot for Liverpool to press in, it's still a bit like you ultimately want to be in a position as a player on a pitch where you're like, right, we planned for this. I know where we are here. With City's build-up, because of what they were doing, it didn't seem like Liverpool ever really were in that position.
It's a really, really interesting point, mate. And we'll bring that graphic back up. And as I say, you got 5 Liverpool players. Yeah, you're outnumbered, 6-5 there. But I think Salah's taken up a position whereby he's trying to cut off the pass into Phil Foden, I think it is, and he's leaving Gvardiol out on that left-hand side. And the thing is that what happens here, crucially, is a centre-back, I think, plays that pass to Gvardiol there. But Bernardo Silva's not a centre-back, so he just drives past Ekitike. And he's taken a player out the game, and that's moved everything on, like, ridiculously. Gvardiol's still there as an option. He's actually bought time for O'Reilly to come back into play and drag Conor Bradley with him, which is crucial to this phase of play. So as we move it on now, you can see he plays it out to O'Reilly. And now at this point, if you could just go back one again, Aaron, just watch where Bernardo Silva is as he plays the ball and it arrives. He almost runs in line with the pass. Watch, play it on again. And then there he is, just ahead of the pass now, and he's driving through that midfield. It's a first time ball into, I think it is Phil Foden. and you can see Phil Foden picks it up now, and he's just about to whip one over the top. Look at Bernardo Silva. He's in behind our two players. Now, I think in some circumstances, Konate might be over there, Josh, but there's a big blonde reason why you can't go over there and cover that pass, isn't there?
Yeah. Haaland's taken care of him. Yeah. So one of the few points in the game where Haaland was interested in Konate, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So the ball's whipped over the top there, and now you've gone from Bernardo Silva being the deepest player for Manchester City to Bernardo Silva driving forwards with the ball in your half in about 3.5 seconds flat. It was some of the greatest build-up play I've seen in a long time. It's a poor pass, actually, from Bernardo Silva. He actually plays the ball into Doku, but plays it slightly behind him. Doku, at this point, has got it in front of him, but he's getting caught up by the Reds midfielder, and he whips a terrible ball out to help me out, the right back. I've got so lost in the names. All of the names are just wrong. So he whips a terrible pass out to Nunes, and Robertson intercepts it. Had that not been the case, we'd have had a one-on-one with Robertson right here on the edge of the penalty area, which, to be fair, is pretty much where the first goal came from, that sort of situation anyway. But I'm remiss to mention too much about that because they got stuck in that position for far too long and then changed back at the wrong time for me. It was some football, I want it.
Yeah.
And what are you supposed to do to that? How do you stop
that move is interesting because it depends how much weight you put on the individual quality of Bernardo, who's just kind of found a way to do that, versus Guardiola giving him a license to get involved and build up by saying, go on, you go deeper, mix it up with Phil Foden, find a way out the defensive half into Liverpool's half and all that sort of thing. So you probably tip your hat to both. I think Guardiola's given that license and he's made the build up unpredictable, and then Bernardo has also just thought outside the box, and he's found a way into Liverpool's half, combining really well with his teammates. But City did a lot of that throughout the game, to be honest, and that probably goes back to your initial point at the very start of the podcast, where you said, like, we were average but they were just really good. That's an example of them being pretty good, like. Yeah,
and I don't think Liverpool could have done much about that, to be honest with you. I think any side would struggle with that. And listen, that's one side of the football that we talk about, how they sort of built up against us. You mentioned we're going to talk about how they nullified Liverpool in the build-up phase. We're going to do that and continue this show on redmenplus.com. We're also going to be diving into the advanced analytics of the game. And then, Josh, I'll be asking you these questions. How far away from being back to our best are we? Are you worried about the issues that have undone us, or is this still a thing that we're going to find out in the next few weeks? What's the best we can hope for in the league this season? And what's the plan for AFCON? Because surely there's a plan for AFCON. There's got to be a right winger to replace Mo Salah. So these are questions that are coming up on the rest of the show. If you've joined us on YouTube for this one, thank you very much. Much appreciated. If you want to get involved in the rest of the show, we're going to carry on now. So have a good one, and we'll be right here. That was a clip from the deep dive. To check out the whole show, head to redmenplus.com or click the link in the description.